Hi, this is Dan Ostry, creator of the Team Trust Survey. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial on how to interpret the survey results. This is the second tutorial in a three-part series, beginning with how to rate and score the survey and ending in how to introduce the survey to your team. At this point, I'm assuming that you have already taken the survey yourself. You have scored it and identified the level where the team you've rated most typically operates. You've also read through the descriptive statements for each of the 5 Team Trust levels. In this tutorial, I'll talk more about each of these levels and what a team can do to enhance trust wherever it is on this continuum. I'll also focus on what to do when scores seem to match more than one level. Let's begin with the ultimate goal in mind. I would call that goal consensus by the leader and members of a team on the answers to 3 key questions regarding team trust. Where do we see ourselves today? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? I like to use the image of a bell curve from the field of statistics to begin talking about levels of team trust. I want you to understand this is inexact, more a metaphor than a scientific analysis, but it also can be quite helpful to visualizing the continuum of levels. Most teams are in the middle of the bell curve, somewhere between low and high trust. They are governed by the conventions of traditional workplace culture, a culture for most organizations that has its roots in hierarchy and an ethic of individualism. People tend to get their work done, and the team performs. The focus is usually on getting the tasks and projects completed on time, in budget, and with a minimum of errors. Often there's a manager or leader who keeps the team on track, handling performance issues or interpersonal problems and disputes in the background. I'd emphasize there is nothing wrong with this team, but it has unexamined and therefore unexplored potential. When teams move to the +1 high-functioning level, things begin to change, largely because of a conscious and intentional team decision to help the group be all that it can be. In such groups, people learn to take risks, to speak up with one another, and to address and work through differences on their own. They most often do this without the leader's help. The leader and members are learning to become genuinely vulnerable with one another, vulnerable on behalf of the team's inner sense of community and overall mission. In +1 teams, people, including the leader, show their vulnerability by openly acknowledging their mistakes in a group setting, asking for feedback, help, and guidance from one another, and brainstorming solutions to performance issues. I'd emphasize that relationship building at the +1 level is conscious work. Above +1 are a few teams at +2. They are great environments, but challenging ones as well. People at +2, the ideal level, talk about anything in their team meetings. Few, if any, issues need to be addressed behind closed doors. If an individual's performance or interpersonal behavior is an issue, the group can and does bring it up and talk about it constructively. +2 groups have gone beyond individual vulnerability to a point where defensiveness is rare, almost prohibited as part of the group norms. These groups actively turn conflict into collaboration. The hallmark of such teams is their extraordinary sense of shared creative energy and interdependent purpose. The need for a central leader fades as each person exerts leadership within the group in a different way. Members feel deeply supported in their own life paths in a manner that goes beyond the bounds of any team or organization. On the other side of the coin are the -1 and -2 teams. In -1 low-functioning groups, mistrust has taken hold. The group has internal fault lines and fracture points. Some would describe this level as a room full of broken glass where everyone must step carefully. Typically, there are theories about why the group is the way it is, theories based in negative views of each other's motives or competencies. -1 is often a cold war, where misunderstandings and put-downs leak onto the surface of team interactions, and there's talk, gossip, and criticism in the background. -1 is the land of undiscussables. Undiscussables are issues that people hesitate to bring forward to those who can do something about the problems because of their fears of negative repercussions or their sense that it won't do any good to try to address the issues. Often, team members blame the leader for the group's problems, and they may or may not be right. Blame is a key word for -1 teams. Finding fault is always just around the corner, waiting to slip into the discussion. Finally, there are a few -2 teams. These are groups that genuinely deserve the label dysfunctional. The war that might have been cold in the past is now definitely hot, and the team is disintegrating. Mistrust has become bound up with anger, disappointment, a persistent sense of betrayal, and people assume that only by changing out team members or the leader will the problems be fixed. Many feel completely burned out by the conflicts. They may leave the organization just to get away from the disintegrating group. Once a group agrees generally on what level it is in the framework, it can then talk about what next. Where do we go from here and how do we get there? In the survey document, this information is found in the intervention section and is fairly detailed. Please keep in mind, however, that the information in this section is not all-inclusive. Your group may need and want different things, so a thorough discussion is required. What I will share briefly now are the primary trust-building tasks for each level. They are listed here and are general in nature. For levels -2, -1, and 0, they focus 2 levels up. That is, when a group is deciding what to do, it shouldn't just look at the next level and try to get there, but instead look to the level beyond. If a group sees itself at -2, it should look at the good sides of the null or 0 level. If the team is at -1, +1 is an example of where it might aim to go. If the group is at 0, members can consider what there is to learn from +2. Let's look at these primary trust-building tasks for each level. I'll start with -2 and work toward +2. If you rated your team as -2 disintegrating, a primary thing that will aid trust is usually basic organizational stability. This is what characterizes the null or 0 level. People focused on their work and serving customers. So at -2, it usually helps to get clear about tasks, about individual and group expectations and roles. Stability means quickly and thoroughly addressing obvious performance or working relationship issues, and these are usually right on the surface. They must be dealt with even if it means that the team is reorganized or that some people go and some stay, including the leader. Small changes sometimes can mean a lot. It isn't always a big shift. The team will need help from outside, from an external consultant or someone in human resources to advise and perhaps facilitate some of these tasks. If you rated your team as -1, a primary trust-building effort is restoring respectful relationships, work that takes time, persistence, and patience. Team members need to be encouraged to take risks again, to overcome the fear of repercussions or the sense that things can't change. What's undiscussable needs to come to the surface and be addressed in a facilitated way, and those who are leading must model the changes in their own behavior first. When I say those who are leading, of course that includes the formal leader of the group, but it needs to also include those who are informal leaders as well, and that could be you. So whatever you can do to display what people do especially well at the +1 level, which is to take risks, ask for feedback, and show that changes can be made safely if everyone pitches in, is powerful and important work. The traditional practice level, level 0, is where most teams start. The primary trust-building task is in helping foster a sense of group self-determination as a desired and conscious effort. People need to see why change might be important to them, why the risks to move higher on the trust continuum could be worth it. The first step may be helping people notice that the group could be, and really needs to be, more than the sum of its parts. The group has combined power and combined potential that it will realize only if people choose to go in that direction. That power and potential are based in the decisions members make together, the processes they use to get things done collaboratively, and the work they mutually do to improve the quality of their relationships. For high-functioning +1 teams, the primary task is to overcome the anxiety people hold about getting real with one another. This is the most misunderstood of the levels. It isn't about creating harmony, but it's not about intentionally creating conflicts or being abrasive with each other either. It is about choosing to open up the opportunities for personal growth in a combined way. Sometimes that's scary work because people worry it will mean confronting other members, banging people around with negative feedback, or maybe hurting others on the way to the truth. In my experience, that's not the real work. It's the feared work. The real work is in taking the risk to develop and grow as a human being and professional in front of and with other people. Plus one is about enhancing personal capacity for disclosure, about supporting each other especially well, while each person gradually learns how to ask for feedback, confront themselves, not others, and learn to make the changes that feed their own maturity and wisdom. For ideal +2 teams, the primary task is really one of constantly exercising new capabilities by taking on the leadership challenge together. This challenge is about the increasingly frequent replacement of a central leader figure with a group's own combined leadership capacity. Ideal teams exercise this capacity by learning to collaboratively change systems, change the organization, change products, change programs. They are creative and strategic innovators, a powerhouse team. So their work is in deciding together what's most strategic and big enough to work on and going after it in a highly resourceful way. Additionally, the team can also be challenged to come up with its own self-appraisal and combined group reward mechanisms. As a final part of this tutorial, I want to identify another important way team members can use their score sheets to think about what they might do together to enhance trust. This is likely to be particularly helpful where the team's behavior seems to cross over more than one level. Take a look at this score sheet. In the row total column, you can see that the scores for the 0 and +1 levels are almost identical. To get to where a team might improve, first take a look to see if the highest numbers fall in the good to strong match range. If they're spread out so that the row totals get down into the so-so match range, then you might want to go back and look very carefully at what's happening on your score sheet. Go back and take a look at the questions and how you answered them. What's causing the numbers to be so dispersed? Assuming, however, the numbers are in the good to strong match range, but at more than one trust level, take a look to see if there are 1 or 2 questions in particular that affect the row totals. In the example shown, there's a 5 rating for question 3 at -1. Why is this score so low? This could be a great topic for team discussion. And here you can also go farther by reviewing the What Each Question Is About section in the survey document. There, you'll see that question 3 concerns leadership and decision making. In effect, the 5 rating in this dimension could highlight a possible objective for a specific kind of trust enhancement. Each question is explained in the section of the survey document and contains one targeted suggestion for improvement. You will probably be able to brainstorm more suggestions once you know what the questions are about and have discussed with others the circumstances that caused you to rate this particular dimension at a lower trust level. In the survey document, you will also find some additional commentary pages describing what causes mistrust and generally facilitates trust in teams. These can serve as examples for discussion, especially if they highlight questions and issues that might be relevant to your own group. This concludes the second tutorial. The third tutorial describes how you can introduce the survey to a group. This is Dan Oestreich. Thanks very much for listening.